Hello and welcome to 19 O'Clock News, a Kodocha podcast. My name is Mahou Shoujo M, also known as Daily Kodocha, and I am joined by my co-host.
Ari, also known as That Kodocha Girl on YouTube and Twitter, X, or whatever we're calling it these days.
I'm gonna be calling it Twitter out of protest for like the rest of my life, probably.
I just call it Twitter because X just sounds stupid to me. But
It
I get
does.
I get where you're coming from too. It's
I
been
yeah.
yeah.
It's just so, I mean, that's like a conversation for a different day. And folks know I work in social media, so I have somewhat vested interest in what happens with these platforms. And I can say confidently that my job has gotten harder because of the artist formerly known as Twitter, and their new owner. So it's just been annoying. But yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of funny. Like, it's colloquialism is so strong. Like, people still call it a tweet. Like, even if they have transitioned from calling it Twitter, it's still a tweet. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I
It's
mean?
just they just need to go back to that. I mean, if I'm being
They,
honest, I know it's probably not going to happen, but
no,
it's just easier. Everyone still calls it that. Like,
I
it's
know.
just do it.
It's like there's so much at play there because it's like, why would you spend billions buying one of the most recognizable social platforms in the world and then immediately give up that branding, which is so recognizable and so strong? Like, that's what you were buying.
Sounds
Um,
like some weird power dynamics to me. But
oh,
let's
yeah, like we can. I can orate about this all day. I have many theories. I have lots of opinions on this topic. That is not why we are here today. We are here today for something else, possibly
we're
more incendiary than Twitter.
so today's topic of the episode is going to be Fuka Matsui.
Yes, yes. We actually haven't done a character like we haven't done a character focused episode in a really long time. Um, I think did we do one on Sana for her birthday a few years
Yes,
ago? We did. Okay,
I
we did one on Sana.
we,
We did one on
we did
Naozumi.
Naosumi, we did Sana. I think that's it. I think
Okay, I think
we
that's.
haven't done Akito or Tsuyoshi or Rei or anybody
Uh,
else.
I mean, yeah, that's. We'll have to get to those at some point, but it's been probably over a year, I think, since we've done a character episode. Maybe over a year and a half. Like, it's been a minute. So, we were thinking about, December and the important things that happen in December for Kodocha fans and decided to do one on Fuka's birthday.
Yeah.
um, our sweet girl. So, yeah, we know that this is going to be an interesting one. I am going to be really curious if anybody even clicks onto this episode because the feelings around Fuka are so intense.
Yeah,
Um,
I was worried when we initially discussed doing this topic because
yeah.
it's like, well, it's still a big part. She's still a big part of Kodocha. And I feel
Absolutely.
like just talking about her character development, her role in the story is still really important to discuss. It's just, some people have a certain perception of her that would I could see like, oh, they're talking about Fuka. Why would I want to watch that? But hear us out.
Yeah, truly, like this is our hear me out. Like, hear me out. What if she was not as bad as everybody thinks she is? What if she's not the villain? What a
Yeah,
concept.
exactly. And
What?
if you get to the end of the show, if you're listening to the show and you still vehemently despise Fuka, tell us why, tell us why you feel so strongly because I was there too, trust me.
Oh,
When I
same.
first watched Kadocha, I really did not like her at all. I couldn't
Yeah.
find one single thing about her that I thought was positive.
Yeah, I mean, same for me. I, as a 13-year-old watching Kodocha for the first time, I mean, yeah, you hate Fuka. Because it does feel very personal. And I will say too, an opinion I've long held and stand by is that the anime does her dirty, and that her development is a bit more well-rounded in the manga. But even outside of that, I mean, I do think that there's a lot of, I'm so happy that like, now 10, 15 years have passed and I can look at Fuka with adult eyes, I think, and look back on that time in my life and understand her better. Just because like that's the gift of time, right? Is perspective. And I do think that that helped a lot. I was not mature enough at 13 to get her.
I'll be honest, I wasn't mature enough at 22 when I saw the show.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I mean, you started with the anime, um, and we didn't have great subs for season 2 back then. You were like battling the waves, like the whole ocean.
Yeah, it really didn't. Even when I read the manga the first time, like it was almost like, well, it's she's not as bad here, but I still don't like her.
Hmm.
Um, but it's interesting because she's the one character that every time I do a reread or even rewatch the anime, honestly, like I find something new I like about her. I
Yeah.
like, oh, I didn't catch this little detail here where she's being very sincere and she's being very caring for Sana or Akito, but like
Hmm.
a lot of the fandom seems to brush a lot of those smaller moments aside.
You really do. And I think that she gets judged very harshly by things that she says or does when she is like emotionally distressed, which it's like, who else doesn't always say the right thing when they're emotionally in a bad place? Like you, me, Sana, Akito, Tsuyoshi, every character in the series says stuff that they regret when they're in periods of heightened emotions, but only a few get held, to that for the rest of the freaking series by fans.
Yeah, and honestly, I think it's just because she's such a prominent romantic quote unquote rival in the show.
Hmm.
Like we have Naozumi, but he's very subtle in how he tries to be with Sana. Like he's never really like he does these things throughout the series, but he never really is like, "Hey, let's go on a date."
Hmm.
Um, but when Fuka comes in, it's pretty early on when the whole relationship between her and Akito start, which we'll touch on a bit
Yeah.
later on in the show today.
Yeah. I think the other thing too is I'm like, and I'm just gonna say it. Folks are welcome to disagree with me, and if you do, I'd like to engage in that conversation. I do think that some of the reason that Fuka gets so much more shit than Naozumi is because of just sexism and internalized misogyny from young
Hmm,
girls.
that's
Because,
interesting.
Naozumi, even if like you don't ship him and Sana, like he's still like a Bishonen. He's still like shipping material. Like the Sana Naozumi, like people don't get nearly as worked up. Or like Sana Akito shippers don't get nearly as worked up about Sana and Naozumi as they do Fuka. It's just my observation. And I do think that there's an element of that to it.
That's really interesting.
Think about that.
I never thought about it like that before.
Yeah, because like you'll see. I mean, and it's because where I see a lot of the hatred for Fuka are from people who have not read the manga, which fine, whatever. Please read the manga. Um, but in Naozumi and Sana have a relationship for like several have a thing for several episodes, even though Naozumi knows deep down that Sana loves Akito. Same thing Fuka does, continues with her relationship with Akito, even though she knows deep down that he loves Sana. But we never vilified Naozumi the way we do Fuka.
Yeah, you make a good point.
It's been known to happen. So I don't know. But so anyway, stick with us on this one. I'm hopeful that by the end of some analysis, we might make a few more Fuka fans yet.
All right. So, do you want to talk about Fuka's introduction to the series?
Oh, yes. I met my best friend in the bathroom. Very iconic meeting. Um, I will say too, like it's episode 52 of the anime or chapter 20 of the manga. And the I would say the anime adaptation is like very faithful to this chapter. So there's not a ton of difference between them, I would say, but I love the way that that the whole chapter is kind of laid out because, you've got Sana who's cut her bangs too short on the first day of school, which is such a like an interesting, very minor plot point because like Sana does her hair different ways a lot, but we don't really get to like see that much or like see her getting ready very much. So it's already kind of like a bit of a shift. And then she gets to school and Aya and Tsuyoshi are like, it looks fine. And Akito tells her it looks bad.
Because of course he does.
Because of course he does. Because he has to. And so, then she goes into the bathroom to try to fix it and runs into another girl her age who's done pretty much the same.
It's very Obana though to write moments like this. Like I feel like she's
Hmm.
really good at putting in like a mundane detail that you wouldn't think would be plot relevant and then it becomes relevant. Kind of like the Sana's three birthmarks on her backside.
Yes. Oh man, yeah, that's a great example of like this is actually not foreshadowing, but yeah, this detail is important. Come back to it. And I actually didn't notice it until I reread it this last time, but she says, oh, I cut my bangs too short, and Sana is like, oh, me too. And then Fuka goes, I cut all of my hair too short. And I was like, oh, I didn't realize. I just thought it was funny because I had always sort of, 'cause she had longer hair when she lived in Osaka, and that's kind of a thing that comes up when they meet up with her Osaka friends, and they're like, "Ooh, like city girls got new hair." Um, and so I'd always kind of thought it was like new year, new me, doing the big chop because like we've all done that, right?
Oh yeah.
But I now I'm kind of wondering. I'm like, "Ooh, did she just like trim too much?"
Maybe.
Bless her heart. Oh man. Um, but no, I love this chapter too because like it's so clever the way that Obana kind of like starts to like thread her into the story. Like she's like, oh, like they find out that they're in the same class, and once they get to class, some people want Sana's autograph, and Fuka's like, I mean, come on, y'all. Like, she's at school. She just wants to be your classmate. Like, don't treat her weird or differently, which is such a nice thing to do. For Sana, who is chronically bad at telling fans no.
I
Um,
know. Fuka's just she's so blunt and forceful and that's
mhm.
probably my favorite thing about her is she just says it like it is.
Yeah, she's very straightforward. And when you've got characters like Sana and Akito, who both kind of talk around things, talk in circles, won't say what they're thinking straight out, it is nice to have somebody to poke and prod them along the way,
Hmm.
basically. And so yeah, like so there's that and she they start eating lunch together and Sana's like really excited to have found a female friend that she can connect with because I mean she says to Ray, which I think is really interesting, like I have like other female friends from like elementary school, but I feel like they all kind of looked up to me too much. And I do think that that's a really interesting take about like Aya and Hisai and Mami and crew.
Hmm. Yeah.
So I love that. And then I guess and it's really funny by the end of the chapter slash episode when Fuka meets Akito and flips out. And that's kind of where we end, with her like slapping him and saying that he ruined her life. So like Obana does this great job of like kind of ingratiating you with this girl for the preceding like 29 pages and then kind of pulls the rug out from under you. Um,
Yeah, you realize there's that connection there.
mhm. And I also think it's very funny too. So a little Japanese note for folks who don't know, but basically how you I'm trying to think of how to explain this. With hiragana, you have like your kind of basic sounds like a, e, u, e, o, etc. And then when you want to change those, you would either add either like apostrophes or a little circle, and the apostrophes will make it a ba sound, and a little circle will make it a pa sound. So that's why when Akito sees Fuka again, he calls her Buka because they're spelled really similarly, basically. And so he misread her name or misremembered her name from back when they were small and still learning. So there you go.
That's interesting.
That's the Buka joke. Fuka Buka.
So that was actually another thing that was one of those odd little foreshadowing moments was this whole first kiss from elementary school was another foreshadowed event. Because I can't remember exactly which volume or chapter it is, but there's a moment when I think it's also in the anime where the boys are kind of whispering and they're like, didn't he have his first kiss in kindergarten or first grade? And then all of
Mm-hmm.
a sudden it's like, oh, we get that whole like breakdown of that scene and
Yes. Exactly. Which is so masterful on Obana's part. And I wonder, part of me thinks that that might have just been like a detail she peppered in early and then like went back to and brought forward. I don't know if because she said before that like she didn't expect Kadocha to go for so long. And so when it did, then she was able to kind of use Naozumi and Fuka and other characters. But in the
yeah,
early days, you
she
know,
does it so much though, so it's like I
I
can't
know.
help but think that like she maybe I don't know. Part of me thinks that maybe she has like notes where she's like, maybe I can expand on this little thing here,
Yeah.
and whether or not she had it, planned out beforehand, like this is going to be relevant later. I
Hmm.
couldn't tell you. I can't get in
Yeah.
her head. I'd love
Me
to get in
neither.
her head. I'd love to
Oh,
have an interview with her and just, I would love to know the whole process of how she wrote Kodocha.
honestly, same. Because I feel like she'll talk a lot about like, just her getting her bearings in the beginning as a mangaka and talks about the art aspect, but she doesn't really talk about like what her process as a writer is. And she's such a strong like author, which I don't think she gets enough credit for. I mean, obviously, like her art is fantastic, phenomenal, beautiful, stunning. I mean, I can spend all day just like staring at the lines on like eyes, you know, that she does. But she's such a great writer. So yeah, I'm with you there. That would be cool.
Yeah. Everything that I've read from her, and I've only read about the first volume, I think, of Honey Bitter. It
Hmm.
wasn't really my cup of tea, but I could see it going in really interesting directions. So at some point I'd like to read the whole series.
Yeah,
Um,
it's
but
on my to read list.
her series partner is just, I mean, that's
Oh,
some of the best writing that I've ever seen in a manga, honestly.
yeah, she did one time on Twitter. She posted a like I think one of their color pages from Partner, and I think she captioned it something like that time I traumatized all the Ribbon readers.
I know, I
Um,
love that.
and I'm like all the Ribbon readers and me. I'll be thinking about that one for a long time.
Yeah, I still think about that one often and there I'm not going to spoil it, but there was a moment like right in the middle of it where I had to put it down for like a day because it was like, okay, this is just way too intense. It's good intense. It's just like, oh my gosh, like I can't believe that I can't believe that this was written by the same person that wrote Kadocha, who wrote about the silly little antics of a 12-year-old girl and
Yeah, yeah, I'm with you. Like she's got the range. She can do it all.
Mhm.
Which is not, I guess, super surprising. Because I mean, if you look at just like the range in Kadocha in terms of like comedy to, drama, like it makes sense that she can also do horror and psychological and like all of these other types of genres and feelings and emotions.
Mhm. I'd argue that Kadocha gets pretty psychological in
Oh,
the
for
second half.
sure. Yeah.
Um, I actually, I used to prefer the elementary school arc. Uh,
Mm.
I, I think. and I'm talking about the manga specifically, and the anime counterpart has grown on me as well, despite the many changes that we've discussed before.
Hmm.
Um, but I've really just been soaking in that drama from that second half of the series lately,
Mm.
and I just can't wait to talk about that more honestly on my YouTube channel when I get the chance to actually sit down and really write about it because I have so many things that I want to say, not enough time.
Yeah. I mean, my statement on the junior high arc is always just like, junior high arc hurts so good. Like,
Hmm.
I never really think, I'm like, I'm a fluff person. I just like to read fluffy, happy things. Like, I don't really think of myself as somebody who really enjoys drama in my media, but damn if I don't love the drama in the junior high arc.
I think I'm
Um,
the opposite of you in that regard. I enjoy suffering.
sorry, the way you phrase that really got me.
Yep, I made
True.
sure to phrase it that way.
And suffer we do in the junior high arc. Oh my God. Because I mean, it's everything from like, it's just you want to shake them both. They're so bad at communicating. It just kills me. And just like the way they keep missing each other, just ships in the night. They can't spit out the thing they're trying to say at the right time. And it just, oh, that's what makes the payoff so great, though, when they do finally get together.
Hmm. So, did you have any other thoughts on Fuka's introduction in the series?
Not necessarily. I love the way that they that Obana kind of sets her up a little bit. And it sort of surprises you at the end. I think that that was really very clever of her, and it is kind of nice to, you know, it's a refreshing energy, I think. But it is also just funny, after this, as Fuka and Sana get to be really good friends, watching them kind of feed off of each other's like manic energy.
Hmm.
We've all got a gal pal, right? Who we just sort
Yeah,
of both become crazy when we're together. You and I, perhaps, on some
I
levels.
was just about to say I'm sitting here with one of mine. Although I unfortunately don't have as many gal pals as I used to have.
Oh, that's one of the
But
tough things about adult life, I think.
I know it's so sad because
Yeah.
I have so many great memories. I had this one friend, and she was my best friend in middle and high school. And
Hmm.
yeah, that describes us perfectly, the feeding
Hmm.
off the manic energy and like I miss it. I miss those days.
Yeah.
If I ever could have my own manga series based on my life, I'd probably have it about that,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah, I just like I don't know. I kind of miss like I miss being a giddy. I here's okay. Let me clarify. I am not dying to get in a time machine and like go back to middle school or high school because good God, no, thank you. Once was enough. I'm glad to have survived it, but I do still look back fondly with warm memories for some of the just like sugar rush antics of being a young girl, silly dares and running down the street and going to gas stations and buying Sour Patch Kids and, mixing Sprite and ice cream and just like all kinds of things, feels
Yeah,
kind
I
of
miss that
isolated to
too.
that period of life. Yeah.
Yeah, it really does. Like I look back on it sometimes and um usually what gets my gears turning in my head is like I'll hear like a song from back then. So a lot of my friends were really into My Chemical Romance. So
Hey.
every time I hear I liked a few of their songs, but I wasn't as into them as some of my friends were. But every time I hear them, like it instantly takes me back to that time and like I remember like
Mm.
we'd always like go to over to each other's houses and like watch like AMVs with like My Chemical Romance
Yes.
songs. And
Oh my God, yes.
I remember specifically there was always like a teenager's AMV for like
Always.
everything. It was
Yes.
amazing.
Yes, I too remember that era. I never made one. I definitely made a Cardcaptor Sakura AMV to an Aiden song, which is a bit heavier than MCR. Which like now I'm like, that is some crack nonsense. Frankly, like I don't know what 13-year-old M was thinking.
I used to sit and just daydream about like I'd turn on my music and I'd just like sit there and like make literally make AMVs in my brain
Yeah,
to the
absolutely.
music.
Yes, I used to do this. Okay, so what I used to do was like if I had time in study hall or even if I just like wasn't paying attention in class, I would have my notebook paper out and I'd look like I was taking notes, but I was actually writing the lyrics to the song I wanted to use to make an AMV in like one column and then writing a description of the clip I wanted to use with that lyric on the other side.
I love that.
It's like, yeah. I actually have a Kodocha AMV that I made when I was 13 that got pulled off YouTube in like 2012. I doubt anybody's seen it. That I've been thinking of posting. The song I used was I'd Do Anything by Simple Plan for my
All
Kodocha
right.
AMV. So
I love that.
I'll have to show it to you sometime. It's a hoot. There's some really rough Windows Movie Maker transitions in there.
Yeah,
It was a
you know,
it was a simpler time.
some of those videos like are still like they've survived on YouTube, and sometimes I'll go back because there's if anyone doesn't know, like if anyone wants to, this is the closest we'll probably ever get to a real time machine, okay? But there's this little trick you can use on YouTube to see like really old videos, and I'm just putting this out there in case somebody listening doesn't know how to do it. Because I learned this a few years ago, and it's been something fun for me to find like older videos, and it's helped a lot. But if you go to YouTube and you're thinking a video that you watched like, geez, like 15 years ago, right? Like in the 2000s, and, you know, if you look it up, you're most likely it's going to be hard to find because there's so many videos on YouTube now that have been, you know, it's been years. The platform's been around for years. But if you type in the name of the video and then you type in space and then you put before colon and then you put the year. So say I wanted to find a video I remember watching in 2008, I'd probably put the name of the video, space, before colon 2010, 2009. And I've been able to
Mm,
find a lot of those older videos that way.
smart. I didn't realize that YouTube had like the that kind of search term functionality. That's awesome.
But yeah, if anyone wants to take a trip down memory lane, you can find some of those older AMVs that way.
God bless. Yeah, it's a different time. Different time. I think I've said this before, but I do feel like one of the biggest ways I can my biggest like gather around the campfire, children, while I tell you a story is that before YouTube, which I know is a really difficult concept for a lot of folks, if you wanted to watch an AMV, you would just download it from various like there was the user's name was Mystical Aura, and she had a Cardcaptor Sakura fan site that had an AMV section with various AMVs that were hosted by like for lots of different series, but from people who were part of like her community. And to watch them, you had to download them. Like they weren't hosted so that you could stream them. And I still have some of those in the depths of my like external hard drive. So it's just there it is. The Kawaii Sakura Shrine. That's what it was called. May she rest in peace.
I miss the old internet.
You sound like Mateo.
Yeah, yeah. All right.
Oh,
Well,
all right, back from focusing again. Um, so yeah, so Fuka and Akito end up in a relationship, as we all know. Starts off as kind of a fakey thing when Sana is filming Mansion of Water. And then, she says, would you like to be my boyfriend for real? And he's like, yeah, sure. Shocking, everybody. So they are now in a relationship. It is not super serious. They mostly walk home together and hang out with Tsuyoshi and Aya. Like they don't really go on dates or anything. It is very much an in title only relationship. And things get a little bit funky when Sana comes back from filming.
yeah, we have that whole confrontation at the burger shop.
I think about that scene all the time.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, it hurts so bad. And
It
like,
hurts so good.
you're right, you're right. It hurts so good. She runs. He immediately gets up and follows her. In the anime, there's a stunning piece of animation of Fuka looking so sad, but she looks so pretty also.
Yeah, I like that scene.
Oh, it's so good, you know? And I just always, it's such a dramatic scene, and I just can't imagine like how Akito must have felt like coming back after that. It's like after all of that like heightened energy, it's kind of like just crawling back, like, hey y'all, that
Yeah,
didn't go
a little
well.
awkward.
Right?
Yeah,
Oh man.
that scene is so beautifully tense.
Mhm.
I love it so much.
So good.
It's like finally, the truth has been dropped. Like, oh, this the whole me and Natsumi dating. This, you believe these lies? Like, you just you just want to clap for Sana. Like, yes, tell them. Like, they're your
Communicate,
friends.
baby.
They should know better about you. Like, I get it. Like I would probably feel the same way if I found out that my friends believed some weird lie about me.
Absolutely. And I think it's very interesting too because um Fuka realizes like kind of right then what's happened. And so, and I don't think I can't remember if they do the scene in the anime or not because I didn't rewatch this episode. But in the manga, they're walking home after that, Akito and Fuka, and she's like I should have, like I should have known better because I've been, hurt by rumors in the past too. And she says to Akito, like, what are you going to do? And he says then, like same thing I'm doing now, like this doesn't change anything, even though it does.
I think that scene is in the anime.
I can't
I seem
remember.
I seem to recall it
Yeah.
being there. If anyone remembers, comment below because
Hmm.
I'm racking my brain. Admittedly, I wasn't able to watch all the episodes that I wanted to before we did our podcast today. So my memory is a little fuzzy because adulting, I've got adult
Mm-hmm.
things to do. So it's like, it's frustrating sometimes. Because if I
Mm-hmm.
could, I'd make Kadocha a full-time job, like running my social media
Real.
accounts. But
Yeah,
life is life.
indeed. They don't pay you benefits for doing.
Sadly,
I know, tragic. If I could get some health care for being a Kodocha fan, I'd probably just do it, but here we are.
same.
Yeah. But yeah, so and I think like that right there really puts Fuka, I think, in a complicated situation because she can see this accurate. Like she can see it for what it is. She feels uncomfortable. But then her boyfriend is like, no, like I don't we don't need to, nothing here is changing. So she's like, okay, you know? And like she gives him, I feel like, multiple outs and he just keeps doubling down.
Yeah, for no reason. I
I
mean, for a
know.
reason, but
Yeah. Because he's a 13-year-old boy and the idea of hurting somebody makes him want to unalive himself. Like
yeah, it's
it's pretty
scary.
common feeling. Yeah.
Hmm.
At that age too. Not being able to just being so young, it's so difficult to communicate at that age, particularly in relationships when things are uncomfortable. You spend so much more time in silence than you do actually talking, I feel like, or at least that was my experience.
Especially if you consider his trauma too. I feel like that just makes
Mhm.
it harder for him to really open up to people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So then there's the fateful Akito catching that Naozumi interview
Yeah, I
where
love that moment.
yeah, and then realizing that Sana has feelings for him. And they have their hallway confrontation, um, only to find that Fuka's around the corner and heard the whole thing.
Because of course,
Because of
convenient plot
course,
device.
I know. I do actually feel like it was a pretty good, like Sana injures her finger during class. She's been gone for a long time. And so Fuka's like, "What? Why have you been gone for so long?" And then just happens to overhear. Ouch. And I do think that this is the scene where everybody really dislikes Fuka is when she says, like, "I'm not breaking up with you."
Yeah, I that was probably my moment too, where it was like, oh, come on. Like, because, it's like we all know that she still has feelings for her ex, Takaishi, but it's
Hmm.
like, it's so frustrating. It's like sometimes it almost feels like she was doing that not out of spite, but I don't know. Again, it's you got to put yourself in the mindset of a 13-year-old girl. Um,
Yeah,
there's almost like a pride aspect to it, I think, that comes into play here.
I feel a little differently. I do think that she genuinely really liked Akito. She found him interesting, as or intriguing. Um,
Hmm.
and in the anime, yes, they definitely do kind of like try to thrust Fuka and Takaishi back together. And Sana certainly tries in the manga, but we don't actually really know what happened there. Like they get his phone number and new information for her. She has it. We never see her really call. She's just like, I have this. And if I want to, I can. And honestly, in my sort of expanded fan and what I've thought about, I don't think they get back together. Because I
Why
do
do you
think
think
that,
that?
because I think that Fuka is sort of a one and done type. I don't think you get multiple chances from her, And so, like, because I think, like, if they, I keep thinking about, like, the scene when the Osaka friends come to Tokyo specifically. And, she clarifies that you know, the kiss was in kindergarten and that she didn't have a boyfriend. And of course, Takaishi is very upset to learn this because he still had feelings for Fuka. And I think that and obviously had a girlfriend and stuff. I think that if, she was going to forgive him and they were going to get back together, like that would have been the thing that pushed that forward.
Yeah,
But I
I
think that
think,
once she walked away from her Osaka friends that day, I think she was done with Takaishi.
yeah, I don't know. I have mixed feelings about that because she was clearly very upset by that whole situation. When they
Fair.
confronted each other, she was still crying. Um, so I think deep down she still wanted to be with him for a while. However, like if they got back together, I would say they at least became friends. Like
Yeah. I think
they
they could heal their
still
friendship.
but as for like their relationship, I don't know. I feel like
Um,
that's one of those things that could go either way, honestly.
yeah, I just think I don't know. I think that like maybe they could become friends again, but I think that, you know, like her trust was broken. He didn't communicate with her, and she's so straightforward. And the fact that he like
Hmm.
literally wouldn't speak to her probably was making her insane. He just like kind of freezes her out one day. And I think that like in the long term, you know, even like that was like something that she had imagined for herself and something that she really wanted. And so it's like difficult to let go of. I don't think they would have I don't think that they're long distance at the end of the manga or anything. I
Yeah,
think like in fact my take on Fuka generally, like when I think about like who she becomes as an adult and stuff, I think she's probably the only one of their little friend group who actually like dates casually,
I could see that. Yeah,
you
I
know?
can't see her. I can't really see her like settling down with one person. I mean, I
Not
think,
from age 10 like the rest of those freaks. I mean, like,
right, who does
like
that?
just those four. And she's like, I love you all. This is weird. I've got a date. Like,
Yeah, I can see that. Uh, yeah,
I have a headcanon that Sana tries to set Naozumi and Fuka up on like a blind date and that it goes terribly.
that
Um,
is one that is one interaction I wish we could have really gotten to see because I
oh,
don't think we
right.
saw that at all in
We
either the
didn't.
anime
They
or
are never in the
manga.
same room. Yeah. And I think like I think that they'd be friends. Absolutely. I think like Sana would be like, this is perfect. I have a single friend. I have another single friend. That's the answer. That's all you need. And
Right.
then they would go to lunch or something and it would be dreadfully awkward and they would just be friends. But that's just my headcanon.
So, do you want to skip
Ah.
to probably everybody's favorite Fuka and Akito moment in both the anime and manga? Because I know, people were anticipating it.
The breakup.
Yes.
Yes. I'm not a huge fan of the version in the anime. It's so melodramatic and I think it takes some of the like agency away from Fuka in a way. I don't know. It's never I've never loved it.
Yeah, it's just kind of, I don't know, it's meh to me. It's
Hmm.
just kind of thrown in there. And I've complained about this before, but like the anime really likes to take some of those hard-hitting moments, especially in season two, and water
Hmm.
them down. And that's one of them right there.
Absolutely. So for folks who don't remember or haven't seen these episodes, they do take a scene that happens in canon and it ends a little bit differently. Akito gets into a fight and Fuga is injured during it, which doesn't happen in the manga. Just the fight. And her eyes get hurt. And she has temporary blindness, so she is hospitalized. Of course, her parents, the wicked Mr. Sengoku, twirling his mustache evilly, tells Fuka's parents about, their relationship and tries to get them broken up because, a teacher has a lot of free time to do stuff like that. And so like they forbid Akito from seeing her. He still does. He comes and like sneaks into the hospital to spend time with her because he feels insanely guilty about what happened. And it's not until Fuka hears Sana and Akito interacting that she hears how much they love each other. So then she must break up with Akito. It's
Yeah, it's a little
the,
cheesy.
so cheesy. I just like ugh. It's one of those things about the anime only arcs is I'm like they lack that gravitas. They're always soap opera-y.
Yeah, it's never these hard-hitting, like really hard-hitting situations like in the manga, because it's funny because it's that moment's basically almost reversed in the manga,
Mm-hmm.
because Akito's the one in the hospital from getting stabbed in the arm
Mm-hmm.
by Kazuyuki, which, quick side note, remember how there's an Obana note we talked about in our previous episode? I cannot remember if we found it, where she's like, Kazuyuki appeared earlier volumes. Can you spot him? We didn't find him, did we?
No, but I also didn't look, if I'm being
I
honest.
while I was reading some of the chapters to prepare for the episode, I found him. He he is in chapter 21.
Okay.
There's a moment when I believe it's when Sana is like realizing that like Akito is getting popular with the ladies, and I believe it's Yunchi, Tsuyoshi, and Kazuyuki's kind of in the background, and they're kind of huddled together talking, and Yunchi's kind of like, saying, "You get him, Akito," and you can see him standing there in the background.
Yeah, okay. I okay. I'm pulling it up now to try to find it. I feel like one of the other scenes I've noticed Kazuyuki in the background is I can't remember what chapter it's in, but they're on their way to like class and Akito mentions like not having his lab coat or something. He's part of that gaggle of boys like heading to class. But I can't remember what chapter that is.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. I think I remember catching that when I was doing my Sengoku video.
Mm, makes
Yeah,
sense,
where
makes sense.
I've got the chapter pulled up too, just because I couldn't. Page 27.
Okay.
Let me know if you find them.
Yeah, nope.
No
But
worries. You can
in any
search for it
case,
later.
I was gonna say, I'm like, well done. Good find. What were we talking about? Oh, the breakup. Yes. Kazuyuki, and the breakup happens kind of the opposite way in the manga, which is once Akito has been like stabilized from his injury, Fuka comes to see him and, is kind of like, we've never really like had a serious conversation. But I guess we can't really like break up until I say we're breaking up. And he's like, you're a good person, but I don't know why it has to be Sana, which Akito just kills me because whenever he's not trying, just the most romantic shit will fall out of his mouth. And it gets me every time.
Right?
Um,
I felt the
like
same
that's
way when I was rereading that scene today.
oh, it's so good. And they have their moment of understanding and they leave. And here is where Fuka is a wonderful person, and I'll fight people on this one. She's the one who goes to Sana and is like, "We broke up. You are the one he needs. Go see him, you crazy person. Why haven't you gone to do that yet?" And honest to God, like if she hadn't made that trip, Akito would still be in the hospital having those attacks. Like
Mhm.
it was a good, very selfless thing to do.
That's what I love about all these characters, honestly, because I never feel like any of them, and I'm talking about just the main cast in general, because there's obviously exceptions, Sengoku being one of them.
Yeah.
Um, they never really do anything out of spite necessarily. They always seem to act like if they do something that could be perceived as like negative or mean, it's usually just like out of confusion or frustration. Like I never
Mm-hmm.
feel like anyone is like intentionally trying to like backstab anyone or hurt anyone. And I find that really refreshing because there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of shoujo manga I've read where like characters just like, well, I'm gonna do this just to irritate this person or and I like
Mm-hmm.
that.
Yeah, I would agree. Like it's a very wholesome little friend group. And I do think that some of that is, I'd argue, like Sana very much like sets the energy, the tone there, and Tsuyoshi, I would say, is probably the other person that really keeps that up when Sana is absent. Um,
So
in
Yoshi
terms
is
of
the
supporting each
glue.
other. Yes.
Yoshi is definitely the glue that keeps the whole group together, in my
Mm-hmm.
opinion. Like even more so than
Yes.
both Sana and Akito, or
Yes.
even Aya. Uh, he's just like he is so observant and
Mm-hmm.
like he should be like a therapist, honestly. Like if Obana ever writes more like sequels, it
Mm-hmm.
makes Tsuyoshi a therapist because I think he's very good at understanding like how the dynamics of a friend group and relationships work.
Mm-hmm. I think so too. And I think like it's really difficult for him because he wants to intervene like so bad and kind of until like and he until somebody like asks him something specifically or he just can't take it anymore, he really does keep a lot of that stuff to himself. And I think that's really hard as being somebody who's so observant and not being able to like do anything with what you have observed other
Yeah,
than, go out on your balcony and stare at the moon and think about your best friends and how they should be together.
I know. He's
It's like
so
one of my favorite scenes from
wholesome.
the anime. Yeah, I love him. I love him so much. It's fine. We're fine. It's not a Tsuyoshi episode, but that might be up next.
Yeah, we definitely need to do one on him soon.
Yeah,
When
for
is
sure, for sure.
his birthday's July?
Yeah, he's a summer baby. I want to say it's July. Um, Hold on, I can find this out really quickly. I haven't done birthday posts in a little bit. I keep forgetting. Um,
I need to do more. I don't know why, but I always forget. And then like the day comes and like I'll see your post like happy birthday this character. I'm like, "Oh crap, I should probably do that too."
July 18th.
Oh, I can't believe I
July
got it
18th.
right.
Oh, well done. That's like very close to my wedding anniversary, so I have no reason to forget. I'll remember this year. We will celebrate our boy.
All right. Sounds good.
Yeah, Fuka. Um, but yeah, I think if I didn't like Fuka before, I do feel like that conversation she has with Sana, where she's like, "You need to go to him right now," is where I would have started
hmm
liking her. You know?
That's where I did, definitely.
It was very good of her to do. And of course, then the chapter ends with one of my favorite scenes in all of the manga, which is Sana goes to him in the hospital. They like reach for each other and they hug. And she says, um, basically, like, no matter what things happen, like, I'm going to be here with you by your side. And it's so, oof, so great, so beautiful, and
Feels like a
sponsored
relief.
by Matsui Fuka. Yeah.
So, you want to go into the next topic, since it's pretty
Ah,
relevant to what we've been talking about. So, how Fuka impacted Sana and Akito's relationship.
oh my gosh. I mean, her and Naozumi really do a lot of the heavy lifting in getting these two together, which is kind of funny for romantic rivals, but like, good God, they're working overtime. Um,
I would actually argue that Fuka did more to bring them together. And it's funny because I feel like a lot of it was unintentional from her. While with Naozumi, a lot of his trying to get them together, he definitely planned a lot of what he did out beforehand,
yes,
going on TV and
yes, yeah,
nothing that he did was spontaneous.
yes, no, that's true. He's a planner. But yeah, I mean, Sana would never have realized she liked Akito if he hadn't started seeing somebody else.
Hmm.
Bottom line, like that is what clarified her feelings for her was that jealousy. And one of my best friends from college, and her now husband, when we were in college, he asked her out like 3 times. And she always told him no, and they were best friends and stuff. And then he got a girlfriend, and my best friend flipped out and, was crying like it was a breakup. And I just remember sitting on the edge of her bed and being like, baby, you told him no 3 times. Like, you don't get to be upset that he's dating somebody else now. And obviously, it's different for Sana, because it's not like Akito was being particularly forthcoming or straightforward about what his feelings were. But all I'm saying is that I have seen it happen in real life. And now my best friend
Uh,
and this man have been married for 7 years. So
I love that. Yeah, I mean, I can honestly say I've personally experienced it myself.
there you go.
I wouldn't say it was exactly like that with my husband. Um,
Mm.
he was never with anybody, but it was like, I don't know if he, like, because we were friends, we were good friends for about maybe 2 years, 2 or 3 years. And I was kind of at a point in my life where like I was like, yeah, I could see myself being with him, but at the same time, like I'm really, I'm going to college, I'm working a full-time job, I don't know what I want. And I had just gotten out of a really bad relationship. So, and it was like, I don't know, it hit me one time when I think this girl that he used to know like was trying to go out with him. He didn't want to. He was still interested in me, but like even the thought of that like really pushed me like, oh, this makes me feel awful to think of him with someone else.
Mm.
And it wasn't as dramatic as, Sana and Nikita, of course, but I understand the feelings behind that. Like sometimes it takes somebody else to be in the mix to where there's like, and threat might be a strong word, but they feel like a threat. Sometimes it takes that feeling to be like, okay, I definitely have romantic feelings for this person.
Yeah, and on some levels, like, thank goodness, because otherwise you'd never have known.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, so that's definitely one of Fuku's big impacts on their relationship. But I do appreciate the way that she, I do think sets her aside her own feelings, particularly in the manga, to help them feel okay being together.
Hmm.
The other moment I love is when San and Akito are on their first date and they've been arguing because they're them and are kind of in a bad mood and they run into Fuka, who is like so nice about like running into her ex and her best friend on a date. Like that can't be fun for her, when she's just her general chatty, happy, affable self, and she's cracking jokes and like, oh, I'd like to be on a date because today's my birthday. And then tells them to go to the tree lighting, which was a nice little tip. And they do that, and of course, like it heals the day and sort of saves the date. And I don't know if they would have been able to get out of that funk if Fuka hadn't kind of like broken the bubble a little bit and got them talking again.
Yeah, it really does show that she cares about them more than herself. Because I think in the
Mm-hmm.
beginning, when she's first introduced, like she's definitely, she's not boy crazy, but she
Mm-hmm.
definitely wants to be able to have a boyfriend
Yeah.
and with that chance of and that hope of getting married someday. Like she's very fixated on that. And I feel like that's been a lot of her story is kind of overcoming those things because sometimes those things can hold you back as well. At least I can relate to that. When I was young, like I got so fixated sometimes on a particular person that like I just lost sight of everything else. And um, it's like we talked about, like, yeah, I could see her not really settling down in the future. Um, but I'm rambling now.
Oh no, I don't think you're rambling at all, but I agree. And it's something too about Fuka is like she has other things in her life. After she like leaves the hospital after breaking up with Akito, she's like, well, there's exams coming up that I need to study for, and I've got this going with the gymnastics team, and like, and of course there's this, and she's kind of like listing through those things, and she's like, I'm gonna be okay because and of course, like, which is I think a very mature perspective to have as a 13-year-old, because when you are kind of going through your first heartbreaks like that, it really can feel like the end of the world, and I think she handles it with a lot of maturity. Um,
Yeah, I agree. That's
so
why that's why she's really grown on me. Because I feel like she's very caring in her own way. It's not very obvious. It's more you have to really pay attention to her subtle actions to see
yeah.
that. And I think that's why some people don't really. One, I think people just get really hung up on the fact that she was with Akito in the first place, and like it's like, oh, this is an unforgivable offense. And then they might not read the manga or,
Yeah.
the anime. Like we talked about, the anime does her dirty.
Hmm.
And they don't really resolve any of that well.
Yeah, I agree. Like the anime really doesn't resolve any of the stuff with her and Sana. The manga does a much better job of that. But something that I think everybody's got to remember is like, one, like Fuka wasn't there in elementary school. Like she has no idea what these existing relationships are, and nobody tells her. Like no, like Sana never once goes like, "Oh, like I have feeling," because I'm like I do think Fuka is a girl's girl, and that if Sana had been like, "Oh, like Akito and I kind of have this like long running thing," I think she would have absolutely stepped off. Like
Yeah, but again,
it.
our two protagonists are terrible at communication.
Oh, that's why we have 10 volumes and 102 episodes. Like they're so bad at talking. I love them so much, but like, and so like if in Akito didn't have to say yes when he had feelings for somebody else.
Yeah. I
Like,
understand why he did it, but at the same time,
absolutely.
it was definitely Fuka gets all the blame in that situation, but Kito's partially to blame as well because he wasn't being true to his own feelings. He just, to me, and you could actually make the argument that what he was doing is almost worse, uh,
Mm,
because he was kind of using that almost like, oh, well, things with Sana, they're not really going anywhere. I'm kind of hurt by that, maybe I'll give this a shot with Fuka.
hmm.
Even
Yeah.
though
He
he's
was
still
trying to
hung up on
distract
her.
himself for sure.
And I would actually argue that's probably more toxic than what she was doing, even though it's pretty toxic all around. But
For sure. It was a selfish thing that he did. And like we can acknowledge that. I love the boy. He's one of my favorite characters in media, but that was not his best move for sure.
I'd honestly say that was probably the worst decision that he's made in this show, other
Mm,
than,
drowning
some of the
mommy,
more the what?
drowning mommy, or trying to.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's all the things at the beginning of the
Yeah, yeah,
series
yeah.
combined.
But
Yeah.
after he's reformed,
Yeah. There's
but
so
yeah.
many like I've noticed in this episode there's like so many like episodes that could be branched off from this episode with
Oh
like
my
topics
God.
that we brought up.
We are on a roll. This is actually just our planning call for 2025, everybody. Like,
I mean,
um,
hey, it's appropriate for the last
I
episode of
mean,
the year.
it's true. Yeah, it will be.
So
Oh,
comment below what topics that you'd like us to discuss on next the upcoming episodes for next year.
definitely curious. On Fuka, I honestly, as we're kind of talking about Fuka and Sana's relationship being resolved, that does lead into one of my favorite Fuka moments. Should I go ahead or do you have anything else to add on?
Go ahead.
So, one of my favorite Fuka moments is from the manga, and it is where she and Sana kind of have a heart to heart and really kind of resolve everything that's going on between her and Akito, and they kind of just like lay it all out there. And Sana keeps apologizing, and Fuka's like, stop. Like, did you do anything wrong? And Sana goes like, no, I don't think so. And Fuka's like, okay, well, neither did I. Like, I'm not saying sorry, and I don't want to hear it from you because she's right. Neither of them did anything wrong. It was a tragic miscommunication.
Yep, very
And
true.
because I mean, honestly, I'm like, I can't say at 13 that I would have had that kind of perspective. I would have taken the apology. I would have felt slighted by my friend. I would have.
Hmm. Yeah, it's like I talked about earlier. I love how in this series nobody really seems to act out of spite, and
Mm,
I feel like there's this underlying emphasis on understanding and getting on someone's level and finding common ground. That's not really it's not really a theme that's at the forefront of the series, but it's something that's kind of it's carried throughout the whole manga
mhm.
and anime, and I love that because it's something I feel like. And again, I encourage anybody to read the manga, and if you happen to just stumble upon this episode and you're like, "What the heck is Kodocha?" Um, I just it's like I always talk about, like finding it made me a happier person, and I just feel like we need more understanding and happiness, especially in today's world. I feel like we don't have enough of that, and I think there's a lot we can learn from how these characters interact.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's the richness of these characters and their development um is one of the things I think that's made it so special to so many people for so long. 30 years, right? So I'm very thankful. But,
Me too.
yeah. What about you? What's your favorite Fuka moment?
Um, so I actually had one that it's an anime only one on my list.
Ooh,
I
lay
had
it
listed
on
a few
me.
here. I actually really liked Fuka's role, and it's not an exactly a moment, I guess, but I really liked her role at the end of the anime, and how she was kind of at the forefront of standing up to Sengoku when he was
Mm,
trying to set up Aikido, in that situation with Nakao,
yeah.
trying to make him look like the bad guy. Because she was the one that found there was like a note and she
The
ended up
note,
finding it.
yeah.
Yeah. So I really like that. I felt like that was, of course, not as great as the manga redemption for her, but I felt like the anime did a good job with that part of her character.
She's a great character to use for something like that because she is so outspoken and does have such a strong like sense of justice. Like I do like Tsuyoshi kind of fills that a little bit in the manga when Sengoku's like laying out all of Akito's sins and Tsuyoshi bursts through the window and like is like I was there, stop it.
Hmm.
Um, but I do think that was a good like use of Fuka as a character in this anime only arc. She really is, yeah. I don't know. I like to think that, and again, they're kids, they're 13 and stuff, and so I think her and Akito kind of are able to bury the hatchet as they get older and just they end up being friends, and it's just sort of a funny thing one day that they dated for 6 months when they were in the eighth grade.
Yeah. Well, it's memorialized in a manga forever. You know, if they were like real people.
Yeah, I love it.
Imagine if like some relationship you had like that was like memorialized forever. That'd be pretty awkward.
Yeah, seriously. It's like I'm glad that nothing that I like wrote or published, self-published anything like is still around from when I was that age, because then it would be.
Yeah,
Oh,
I still as an adult sometimes write about silly things like that, and
same.
sometimes I debate like should I just change the names and publish it? Because sometimes I reread it, I'm like, you know, this would make a funny story, but like if people knew this was me, it'd be oh
Hmm.
that'd be so embarrassing.
Yeah. That's the thing though, is like I feel like, some authors like write under pen names and that works well for them and they're able to kind of maintain their anonymity. But like the minute somebody figures out that you are that pen name, like it's all over. Um, so yeah, it's like particularly me with my fan fiction writing and stuff. That's why I don't use my real name on here on this internet.
Yeah, I've been becoming trying to be more anonymous these days because I've been
Mm,
on that side where it's like just put my name. I didn't not all with every account, but with certain accounts
mm,
I have, and you know I use my real nickname with this, but there's a lot of people named Ari, so it's like
mm.
whatever. I'm not causing a whole lot of controversy, so I think I'll be fine.
Yeah, I think you're probably safe. I'm not worried about you. Um,
Um, But back to some of the Fuka moments that I
yeah,
liked,
yeah.
which is funny. I actually had a lot of anime only ones here, but
Mm,
I actually really liked what they did, how they expanded on the and this is kind of a goofy thing, but uh, there's a part in the manga when like Fuka's telling everybody about her plan with Takaishi and how she was like, you know, okay, we're gonna date and we're gonna get married. And I liked how she had like a little song in the anime of that. Like it was like
yes.
in a way it's kind of like what we were talking about earlier. Like it kind of took me back to being that age because I was very much I wouldn't have broke out into a song or maybe I would have showed my friends a list of something like that. But it reminded me of like how like back then it was like you always have these grand plans for your life and you get so invested in them and then like you
Hmm.
realize, you know, life doesn't work like that.
Sure doesn't. Sure doesn't. That's like, yeah, I feel like Fuka, because like we all know, like type A people kind of like that. Try as they might, you can't plan it all. And that's really difficult, I think, to let go of. So the song is really cute. That's I had forgotten about the song.
Yeah, I didn't really have anything else that we haven't talked about on that list.
Mm. Yeah, same. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I'm missing.
I
Me.
do have one like extra note on the side that said Fuka's
Ooh.
outfits are peak.
Oh, I'm like, have I talked about her adorable ponytail yet today?
You have
Um,
not.
I love her adorable ponytail. She only wears it in the manga when they go on that date, with like her Osaka friends. And I just think her hair looks so cute. And she's got like it's in a ponytail with a bow, and she's got little wispies hanging down. And I wish my hair looked that good any day of the week.
I wish my hair looked that good when I put it up. It just looks messier somehow.
Right? It's tough. I have to work pretty hard to make my hair look okay up. So I'm with you. But and I love where like Fuka's trajectory, I think, with uh Sana too, with them doing the radio show together, and because their back and forth is so entertaining, and yeah, and just her being a good friend from then on out.
Yeah. Yeah, her development is it's pretty low key because the focus is so much on San and Akito, but
Mm.
it's really good and it's very true to life, I think. I think that, anyone who has the patience and is willing to move past, if you have initial feelings of dislike towards her, I think especially any girl who grew up, you can find Fuka to be really relatable, in a lot of ways. So I really hope that our discussion today about her, if you did dislike her coming into this episode, I hope it's shifted your perspective a little bit. And if not, let us know why. Because I'm genuinely
Yeah.
curious to know, like, even after discussing this, like, why do you still dislike her? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm also curious because I mean, if you can't get all the way to liking her, I would take a neutral. Like that would also be fine.
hmm
Oh, so we had an interesting discussion in the server, actually. Somebody who was not a Fuka fan, and I bullied them into reading the manga, as I am known to do. And she's German, and she said that one of the things that she really didn't like about Fuka was actually just the way they translated her accent in German. And so, like, if it's about like her dialect, I'm real curious. Like, did they just, you know, in whatever your first like whatever language you read Kodocha in, if they just like didn't, if they translated it kind of weird, like, let me know. I'm curious.
Well, one interesting thing I like to bring up, and in the manga, the English version of the manga, her dialect isn't really super noticeable, I don't think.
No.
I can't remember. But with the subtitles in the anime, the discotheque subtitles, it's much more apparent. There's a difference in how
Mm-hmm.
she talks,
Mm-hmm.
to a non-Japanese speaker. And I feel like that actually helped a lot. Those new subtitles, make her, I guess, understand who she is, her identity a little bit more, why she talks like that. It's
Yeah.
just, that's who she is.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the other things that I've seen online complaining about her has been like, oh, she's just a Sana clone. And yeah, I will say those old dubs, or not dubs, those old subs kind of, it's really hard to kind of see the difference between them because
Mm.
they are very similar. But I feel like the new subtitles help a lot in establishing her identity.
Just one more good thing that discotheque has done for us.
Yes.
But yeah. No, I mean the Sonic clone argument is I understand where people are coming from with that. To me, they're just like I don't know, it's like when you meet somebody who like they're just like a kindred spirit. And so like when you get the two of you together, you're just like it's just like little like fireworks, like little firecrackers just like popping off. And so I feel like that's kind of what we see from them, but like when you separate them out, they are just so different and how they operate is so different.
Yeah, that's
Um
why I strongly disagree with that, like the Sonic clone
mm,
conclusion.
oh
Because it's
yeah.
like, yeah, well, they have some similarities. They're very outgoing. They have a lot of manic energy.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, they like how they process things and how they communicate is so vastly different to the point where, yeah, they're definitely two different characters at this point. Like when
Oh,
you
for
break
sure.
them down, but on the surface, it's like, okay, yeah, I could see that argument being made, but there's no excuse for that if you're going to watch the show and try to understand these characters. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Absolutely.
That's what I
Yeah.
think.
No, I think that's super fair. And I'm like, and to clarify, like, while I can turn my head and see where people are coming from, I don't agree. I think that that's a very saying that Fuka is a Sonic clone is a very surface level take. And Kadocha's a series that, like, yeah, you can surface level watch and read the series. But I think the richness and what makes it so great is when you delve a little deeper.
Yeah, and I don't mean to, because I know sometimes, sometimes you just want to watch a show and just leave your brain on the table and not even think about anything. Like I totally get that. But I just feel like sometimes, like sometimes if you really want to enjoy something, you got to invest your whole self into it. Um,
So I
but
expect to see
I don't
everybody's
know.
podcasts up next month.
Yes, yes. That
If
means we're
you
gonna have
really
a
love
lot of
Kodocha,
competition.
yeah.
But I
But
feel
yeah,
like most people watching this or listening to this podcast, I don't know. I just get the feeling that a lot of the people that listen aren't the passive viewers of Kodocha. I don't know.
I don't
I don't
know.
know.
Yeah, I mean, everybody, listen. Um, everybody who listens, I am curious. Uh, tell us who you are.
And I don't care either way. Like
Yeah,
however you want to enjoy anything, these are our hobbies. We always talk about this. These
absolutely.
are our hobbies.
These
You
are our
enjoy it
hobbies.
any way you want. But
Exactly. There's
I
no quiz
guess
except for when sometimes Ari posts quizzes on Twitter.
yes, because I love trivia. I'm a trivia nerd, but that's just me. But
There is a test. You will be graded. Um,
but yeah, I'm just so invested in this whole series that it's like it's really hard for me not to look at it the way that I do. Because like I
yeah.
literally, and it sounds insane. It sounds so insane, but like I literally like I'm at work. I'm doing unrelated to it, and I'm like contemplating like a scene, just a single scene from either the
hmm
anime or the manga, and I'm like dissecting it in my brain. That's how intense my love for the series is. And I can't believe it's been consistent. Like it's actually going to be going on a decade now of that.
Um,
Because I discovered it in 2016, immediately hooked. It's crazy.
thank goodness. Anything else we want to add on Matsui Fuka? Fuka Matsui?
I didn't have anything else.
Me neither. Thank you for coming to our TED Talk. Everybody, mark your calendars. We are going to be doing a live to kick off the new year on January 11th at 19 o'clock Eastern, and which is 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central. And we're looking forward to seeing you there. That anything else?
No, I had a great time on the show today, and I'm
Me
looking forward
too.
to the live next month.
Yeah, me too. All right. Happy holidays, everybody.
Happy holidays. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to 19 O'Clock News, a Kodocha podcast.
19 O'Clock News is hosted by That Kodocha Girl and Mahou Shoujo M.
We love making new friends. Feel free to join us in the Kodocha Discord under Kodocha_media.
19 O'Clock News is not affiliated with any current or previous rights holders to Kodomo no Omocha by Miho Obana.